Yeah, or 26, that's what I thought. Come in! Yep, no, give you a call back.
You wanted to see me, Mr Micallef?
Yes, I did. Have a seat, yeah. Don't worry about that green screen.
Yes, I suppose drawing attention to the artifice just distracts from the satire, doesn't it?
Exactly, Billy. Yeah. OK, can I ask you this? How long have you been working for us here at Arco Fencing?
Oh, well, 12 years now.
12 years? Gosh. And have you been a shareholder for what, last 3 years?
Yep, ever since they were offered, yeah.
Terrific. OK, you like being a shareholder, Billy?
Yeah, it's good. You know, you feel like you're part of the company.
All right, that's great. Now, you understand the primary responsibility of the board of directors is to look after the interests of the shareholders.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's why we haven't paid any company tax for 6 years. We make decisions about the company based entirely on what's best for the shareholders.
Like me?
Exactly, Billy. Shareholders just like you.
Yeah.
Which is why today I am sacking you.
Right.
JobKeeper payments are coming in for the younger, less experienced employees, but we have to pay the difference for people like you who've been here for a long time and are on a higher salary, which eats into your dividends as shareholder.
Gosh.
Productivity's down, profits are down, and so the only way we can continue paying bonuses to people like me and, to a lesser extent, dividends to shareholders like you is to say goodbye.
It's in my best interest.
It really is, Billy.
And taking my 35 grand's worth of long service leave entitlements probably won't help the share price either, will it?
Not really, no.
Which, again, would affect my dividend. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't claim it.
Well, I can't argue with the logic there, Billy.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Micallef. I owe you one. Hey, I better get going now before I cost myself any more dough.
Oh, I wouldn't worry about actually leaving, Billy. They're just going to smash cut into the titles. Thank you very much. Well, of course, it's very easy for us to make glib undergraduate jokes about our PM, but hats off to him for raising the caps. Yes, our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, has told us what he wants for Christmas is 24,000 Australians, the expensive overseas ones, return home. Now, of course, that's a very popular Christmas gift this year. Everybody seems to want it, but not everybody can agree on how many. ScoMo wants 24,000, whereas Albo wants Santa
to bring home the 25,000 Australians.
Sky News wants
to help some 23,000 Australians.
Whereas Channel 9 is saying
there's hope for 26,000 Australians.
Still, that's media diversity for you, and we should embrace it while we still have it. Now, this Christmas miracle has not been easy to arrange. It's not as simple as writing a letter to the North Pole. As the Deputy Prime Minister explains, he had to write one
for those states. I've written in those territories. I've written to their chief ministers and premiers as well.
And when the Deputy Prime Minister writes you a letter, you know it's serious. I mean, he only got his pen licence a month ago. And how was the letter received? On the mailing list, of course, was Western Australian Premier Mark McGowan.
I am unaware of this. I'm unaware of this. This is news to me.
Bloody Australia Post. Still, Michael was confident he could persuade the leaders using his genial, self-effacing, good old boy country charm.
The states will comply.
Well, he's won me over. So too the New South Wales Premier.
I've agreed on the basis that the other states double what they're currently taking.
OK, now, given that
the two territories and Tasmania currently have no formal intake,
they'll need to increase their intake to 0 or the deal's off. But I don't want to take anything away from the PM, who knows more than anybody just how difficult it is to please everybody at Christmas time. He needed the agreement of the National Cabinet to raise the caps and bring the people home. And if there's one thing this man understands, it's the importance of consensus. Here he is the day before he met with the state premiers.
The planes will land with people on them and they'll be arriving. It's a decision, it's not a proposal.
It's a little Veruca salt of him, but frankly, I admire a Prime Minister who knows what he wants and wants it now, Daddy. Another thing the PM must have right now is gas. Yes, even with a global pandemic, an economic disaster and a shattered relationship with our major trading partner, there's always time for
a little prime ministerial chit-chat with a wombat. A reptile park resident named Hope.
Well, Hope, there's a lot of hope.
Later in the press conference, the PM, after he'd warmed everybody up by fat-shaming our fauna, outlined his mission statement.
Get more gas, more often and more reliably.
Of course, he's not just talking about himself. He's talking about the whole country. And what he's proposing is that the government will build a gas-fired power plant if energy companies don't do more to ensure supply.
As ageing coal-fired power stations close.
A wise move, because you sure as hell don't want the federal government involved in anything to do with ageing. The PM's announcement also prompted an interesting admission from Labor's Shadow Resources Minister, Joel Fitzgibbon.
What he's announcing is our plan.
So a good idea by Labor to hire someone more articulate and popular than Albo to announce their policies. And while the PM seems to be having a crisis of technological agnosticism by picking gas, he did make this proviso.
I don't care what source the dispatchables come from.
Yeah, coal, solar, what's the difference? They're both naturally occurring phenomena. Still, there are the usual naysayers. Backing gas is apparently a bit too old-fashioned for the groovy metaphor-making mods at the Climate Council.
I'd look at it as trying to invest in sort of coach and horses at the time that Henry Ford was inventing his cars.
So the Climate Council is recommending we invest in the cars of today rather than the carbon-free coach and horse option. I mean, what hope have we got, really? Of course, this vision of a future reliant on the fumes of rotting dead things is not just a gas pipe dream. Last week,
the bloody government
also announced changes to allow the Australian Renewable Energy Agency to invest in energy technologies other than wind and solar.
I mean, we're not going to throw money at things that have already been established.
Like gas.
If there's new technologies, we're interested.
Yeah, like gas, an untapped resource if ever there was one, assuming you ignore the last 200 years. Anthony Albanese, though, and we include this for balance, not for interest, said,
This government has never liked ARENA.
Now, that is an outright lie. The Prime Minister absolutely loves her. In fact, according to ABC Fact Check, which is the Herald Sun these days, she's the PM's favourite singer, and he himself has said that his interest in ARENA borders on unhealthy. So, Albo, I think you owe our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, an apology. Now, of course, this isn't just about cheap, affordable power, although you could be forgiven for thinking that, given how many millions of times the phrase has been uttered whenever this subject comes up. It's also about reversing climate change, assuming it even exists. Friend of the show while at Oxford and Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction, Angus Taylor, was also front and centre at the PM's announcement.
$1.9 billion package is the next stage in our strategy of bringing down emissions while we create jobs and a strong economy.
Now, I know $1.9 billion sounds like a lot of money, but remember, it's Angus Taylor, and he once got $14.2 million and $1.7 million mixed up with $4,206 and $1,727. So I suspect the emissions package might cost a lot less than he's suggesting. Now, you might be thinking to yourselves, being Minister for both energy and emissions reduction is challenging. But not when you're one as used to compromising yourself as Angus Taylor. It's complicated, but it can be done. Let me give you an example. Quite recently, BHP was one of 3 companies allowed by the Clean Energy Regulator to increase their emissions to a combined level of 1.6 million tonnes a year without penalty, roughly the equivalent of the $27.6 million spent on emissions reductions credits purchased in March by the Emissions Reductions Fund, or EARTH, which is the noise you make when you realise what's going on. Kev Glauer, former CEO of Portaloo Metals, who is not based on anybody. What's the 411, dog?
Sounds like a pretty good deal to me, Shaun.
Yeah, but what's the point of having these safeguards if you don't penalise companies that exceed their emissions levels?
It's all above board. That's why the government tops up their emission credits, just in case someone goes over the limit.
Yeah, but the taxpayer's paying for those credits.
Yes?
Well, if the government fined the companies, then the fines could be used to buy the credits.
But then the company would have to then pass that cost on to consumers, so the taxpayer would be paying for it anyway. This just cuts out the middleman.
You?
Yes. Look, it's like murder. If I kill someone, but the judge has already paid for a hitman to kill someone, then he can give me that credit and I can walk away from the court scot-free.
The judge is bankrolling you?
To murder who I want, yes.
Yeah, but he's paying you with my money.
Well, you gave it to him.
Well, not by choice. I have to pay taxes.
Have to. You're adorable.
I would expect that a body called the Clean Energy Regulator would have something to do with making sure that there were regulations to ensure energy was clean, or that the Emissions Reduction Fund had something to do with reducing emissions instead of being a slush fund to get around exceeding the baseline.
Listen, I am not going to sit here and be rightly accused of participating in a secret scheme to subsidise the big polluters of this country. If you want to complain about taxpayers' money being used to make a mockery of so-called commitments made during the Paris climate talks, I suggest you direct them at the government's threat to build a gas-fired power plant in this country if we don't. Not only will it be a principled stand on your part, but a much-needed blow for Australia's fossil fuel burning industry, who could do without the competition.
But why would the government want to build a gas-fired power station? Tautology manager in Angus Taylor's ministry, Dramella Burt.
Oh, we don't want to build a gas-fired power station. What we're saying is we'll only do it if the market doesn't do its job.
Right, so what you're saying is when markets don't work, socialism is the only way forward.
OK, not so fast, Philip Adams. Regardless of the results, we will always passionately believe the free market is the best way to deliver the best outcomes for Australian economy and users.
Yes, but if it turns out you're wrong, then you're willing to totally abandon your core values.
Well, let's just say in order to achieve what we want, we are values agnostic, like Angus said.
It's disappointing that the energy companies have not learnt that delivering affordable, reliable energy is their #1 obligation to their customers and to the country.
Don't you think the reason energy executives haven't learned that is because they aren't paid for delivering low prices, but for returning even bigger profits for the shareholders? If you want a rat to learn how to ride a tiny bicycle, you don't reward it for falling off.
Well, I think that's a very unfair comparison. The mode of transport the rat's using should be powered by a fossil fuel.
Yeah, but this threat to build it yourself, won't the energy providers just let you build it? Let you deal with the approvals and the protests and the time and the budget overruns and then just buy it off you at a bargain price when you ultimately privatise it. And even if the government doesn't sell it, you'll have to keep the plant viable by suppressing renewables, which benefits existing power companies anyway. So there's literally no reason for them to give in to your threat.
We're counting on them being incredibly stupid.
Well, if that was the case, they would have already built it.
Oh, they'll build it, Shaun. We have no idea how to construct one, so we'll be subcontracting it out to them anyway. And they'll charge us the earth for it. You see, the free market capitalist laissez-faire system works for the consumer. And history shows us that's particularly true in times of crisis and hardship. I mean, look at the Irish potato famine.
All right, so to summarise, we have a Liberal national government intervening in the energy market to create an artificial price signal.
There's nothing artificial about it. It's natural gas.
And the government investing in an asset so it can drive down the price of what that asset produces.
Lower prices, better for the taxpayer, like ScoMo says.
Maintain that downward pressure, down, on electricity prices.
Yeah, well, down doesn't make for a great return on an investment built with taxpayers' money if you're producing gas at a loss.
Shaun, we need to spend taxpayers' money so the taxpayers won't have to spend as much.
Why don't you just give people a tax rebate on their gas bill?
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, well, make it easy. Last election, you said you'd look into building a coal-fired power plant. You lied. Angus took the fall, hit his head, became the Minister for Energy and Reducing Emissions. It was an accident, but everybody who voted for you was a witness and you have to pay them off. You don't have the stomach for coal, but you got the money for gas. Yes or no?
No. Yes.
Well, which is it? And don't give me that crap about it being a business. You people couldn't run a bath.
I'm telling you the truth. It's a business. It's a service. A business, a service, a business, a service, a business. It's a business and a service.
Forget it, Shaun. It's Chinatown.
Well, coming up later, nodding in the background. We're all familiar with it. An MP addressing Parliament, their colleagues placed artfully in the background, nodding along in apparent support. We look at Labor's new and far more credible approach. Gosh, that's good. Plus, stun-bolt gun has no effect. Now, before the show, we sent Stephen outside. Stephen, you can come back in now.
OK.
Completely forgot about him. Now, when those Australians who've been stranded overseas for so long return home, they'll barely recognise the place. People wearing masks, businesses closed down, empty football stadiums, borders are closed. It'll be like visiting a foreign country, which they'll be just in the mood for, won't they? Aussie Tourism Ambassador Tamara Happenstance.
If you're an Aussie and you're homesick, there's no better place to come than your own country, the home of Australia. So get out your wallets and get your asses onto a Qantas flight and then into a hotel for 2 weeks, you mongrels.
Of course, it was touch and go there for a while, wasn't it, Tamara? The PM said the planes were landing before the states had agreed to let the passengers out at the airport.
Oh. There are worse places to be stuck in than one of our Bonza airport terminals, Shaun. Beautiful they are, with lots of great shops to buy expensive stuff at, whether it's sexy lingerie for your little bit on the side, a bacon avocado and sauce wrap, or a jumper with a shark on it. Your holiday starts the moment you get here, so start spending your money quick smart, you miserable pricks.
Are the stay hotel quarantine systems the best, though? I mean, look what happened in Victoria.
Oh. Aussie hotels are the best hotels in the world to be stuck in for a fortnight, Shaun. Food left outside your door in a bag, and minimal cleaning means your tedium won't get interrupted. And what's the option? Hanging around in the airport terminals like Tom Hanks in that movie. Even Tom Hanks doesn't have to do that or stay in quarantine. You'll get what you're given and you'll like it. And if that's coronavirus, it serves you right for going overseas for your holidays, you
Sunday night on Vera, and DCI Stanhope has her work cut out for her.
A woman crushed to death by a three-legged feral pig. Her pensioner, covered in full gloss paint, found impaled on a cello. And a man found asphyxiated in a hot air balloon with a mouthful of underwear and chocolate eclairs. So, what's the link?
They're all dead.
And
Didn't want to be.
a pig, a cello, and a gob full of smalls. It's got Danny Girdles written all over it. Kenny, grab a few uniforms and go pick him up.
But has she got her man?
And tell me, Danny love, where were you between 8 and 12 last night?
All right. I was on this vast alien spaceship. They sucked me up into it in a beam of white light. They took all my clothes off and gave me a curry.
What do you think, Mum?
I think he's telling the truth.
Why?
Well, it can't be him. We're only 20 minutes into the episode.
The uniforms you asked for, Mum.
That's Vera, Sunday 8:30 and on iView.
Well, welcome back. Time now, though, to go all Amnesty International and shine a light on the most recent atrocities committed by the Daily Telegraph. Punster-in-Chief Chris Lorax joins us as usual. And, Chris, I understand you're only working an hour a week these days at the telly.
Oh, it's more than enough time to come up with 5 weekday issues and whatever it is we do on the weekend, Shaun.
Sure it is. Now, these first three are all from the same edition and they all deal with koalas.
Yeah, we're very proud of these.
All right, page 1. We can't bear this. Page 7, split looms as koala law too hard to bear. And page 18, too much for bush to bear.
Yeah, because bear and bear sound the same.
Yeah. You think your readers, having been subjected to the pun on the front page, would ever want to see it again? Let alone 6 pages later? And then 11 pages after that?
Oh, 6 pages later and our readers would have forgotten it.
Yeah, you're probably right. Well, the next two are on a different theme, women in their underwear. First, Katie Underwhelmed.
Yeah, so that's Katy Perry, and she's posted a picture on Instagram in her underwear.
All right, but in the story, if we can call it that, she's proudly showing off her pregnant body. She's not underwhelmed, is she?
No, but she is in her underwear, see?
Yeah. All right, well, then we have bright colours come in first lace. Now, the story has nothing to do with jockeys or racing.
I know, it's just a play on the word come. Because it's sexy lingerie and, you know. Just a bit of fun.
And finally, mercifully, a story about an actress who doesn't want to be constantly cast in roles because of her ethnicity. Melanie is a tiebreaker of acting stereotypes.
Yeah, because she's showing her thigh, as in Thailand. Well, it makes more sense when you read it rather than say it out loud. Thai as in thigh. It's because she's Asian. Look, just so you don't think I'm racist, here's one I've done about the death of the chief interrogator of Cambodia's Khmer Rouge. So his name is Dutch, so we've gone with Evil Dutch Pops His Clogs. Because he's dead.
Well, bad news for all those Cassandras out there who were predicting worse unemployment figures than the ones being spun by the government at the moment. In simple terms, joblessness has fallen from 7.5% in July to 6.8% in August. In more complicated terms, taking into account seasonal adjustments, rounding, sampling errors, quarterly population rebenching, collection timelines, and the fact that the underemployment rate is unchanged at 11.2% and that you only need to work an hour a week to be considered employed, we're still fucked. So we've got to do our bit for the economy. That's why the more than 1.35 million Australians on JobSeeker are now expected to look for 8 jobs a month. We need to find out where those jobs are and get employed in them for at least an hour a week so the figures look better. And if you think that sort of expectation is unreasonable on the part of the government, look at these videos of Minister for Small Business, Micallef, doing the work of 4 advertorial hosts as she plugs the government's Go Local campaign.
When you're at that
coffee, doing your grocery run, or even shopping online. Or even shopping online.
But in all seriousness, it's important to go local, as the Senator underlined when it was suggested to her as early as last May that we all go out and have a curry for the country.
Go and have a curry for the country. Hey, I'm going to tell the Prime Minister that one. A curry for the country, I love it. I love Indian food. It's my favourite food. I promise you I will do that.
Spokes hairdo for Micallef Cash, Mary Brett punished. With 1.35 million job seekers applying for 8 jobs a month, that's 10.8 million jobs. Now, given there aren't that many available, I assume quite a few of those people are going to be applying for the same job. Aren't some of the applicants going to miss out?
Hoi, Shaun, very funny. It's like Micallef says, the government is focused on getting Australians off welfare and into work and ensuring they remain connected with the labour market, even if it's sitting at home constantly receiving their rejection letters.
Well, tougher job seeker eligibility rules were suspended back in March.
Because of COVID. Yes, we're not inhuman monsters, Shaun.
But being brought back at the end of this month when JobKeeper is being reduced, rent abatement is over, mortgage payments start up again, and a lot of businesses propped up by JobKeeper won't be able to continue.
Well, Shaun, there's only so much money we can print unlimited amounts of. I mean, we need to do our utmost to encourage people off welfare and into the workforce, and we do that by making it difficult to qualify for that money and reducing it if they do.
Yeah, but what's the difference between those who couldn't get work in March and those who can't get work now?
Oh, well, because in March they were job seekers and it wasn't their fault. We're soon they'll be back to being New Start recipients, which means it is their fault and they get less.
Yeah, but not everybody can get a job, and even if they could, the market wouldn't function properly because you need some unemployment, otherwise the price of labour goes up. When demand equals or exceeds supply, workers get power, the unions get stronger, and pretty soon the minimum wage gets increased and you can't deliver for your donors.
Well, Shaun, none of that prevents us from pretending we want full employment and doing what we can to make life difficult for people on New Start. And you know what? It's like Micallef says, it's all about going local. You know, community leaders looking to identify local job opportunities for people looking for work. A big shout out to you. And a big shout out to you from me.
Thank you, Mary Brett. And coming up later in sport, Race Caller does commentary on the economy.
It was the biggest monthly fall in unemployment that was seen in 32 years.
And with people still having to spend 2 weeks in confinement if they step foot in Queensland, is this a possible loophole? But right now, a very special presentation, which hopefully goes some way to making up for the fact that there were no Logies this year. No, we're not going to inject you with propofol and put you to sleep for the next 4 hours. Here's Lydia Rowlands.
Thanks, Shaun. As purveyors of fine news clips from real news programmes since 2012, we at Matters Health think we know a thing or two about what makes for a good news item. So much so that we've decided to introduce the Maddies to recognise excellence in news story presentation. Tonight, we're presenting the Maddie for Best Performance in a Piece of Television News Overlay. And the nominees are... Man walking down street, ABC News.
But political analysts point out another reason as well.
Man walking down street, 9 News.
The opposition framed it as a lack of faith.
Woman walking down street, 7 News.
And breaking point for workers.
Man walking into room with cup, ABC News.
For job seeker recipient Tom Reynolds, at the start of June,
another man walking down street, ABC News.
Australia has cancelled the visas of 2 Chinese scholars.
But the winner is... I got it. Oh, I'm so pleased. It's this one.
Graduates to look beyond university as the only path to a fulfilling career.
Shaun.
Well, thank you, Lydia, and congratulations, Micallef, if you're watching. Mary Brett, if you wouldn't mind passing this on to the Minister, it'll save us having to spend money on any postage.
Oh, thank you.
Well, to fruit now, and like the Australians who refuse to pick it, it's lying around and going soft. But Agriculture Minister David Littleproud reckons we're missing out.
I saw the other day you could make $3,800 a week picking strawberries.
Not bad, particularly given the award wage for fruit picking these days is $19.49 per hour. So working a conservative 7 days a week, you'd have to work 27.8 hours a day to earn that. So either David's example is slightly unrepresentative or the strawberries he's talking about are mixed in with $12.7 million worth of meth. So what do we do? Because let's face it, while we have self-basting chickens, self-sourcing puddings and self-loathing white progressives, unless and until advances are made in scientific mutation to produce self-picking fruit, we may well have to go with the industry suggestion that we get refugees to pick our fruit for us. Backpacker numbers are low, our migration is down, FIFO workers are out, so why not, as the Libs' John Alexander said, seek willing participants wherever we can. Or if they're not willing, force their hand onto the fruit by, as Labor's Julian Hill said, offering them a permanent visa. But will this undo all the good work the LNP have done over the last 7 years, making Australia seem unattractive to asylum seekers? Instead of arriving here illegally, being interned in offshore detention and never being allowed to live here, even if they are genuine refugees, now they can leapfrog over the few people who actually want to come and live in this country simply by picking a few locusts for up to as little as $2.50 an hour. Claudio Milk, you're a farmer who I assume has just come from or is going to a costume party.
No.
Are you a supporter of coercing refugees into harvesting the berries and other fruit we need for our smoothies?
Shaun, my plums are ready to drop. I think the government should be not only shipping labour from these camps to my properties toot sweet, they should be rounding them up overseas and loading them onto freight containers and shipping them here in sufficient numbers to service our needs. Now, I'm not saying these people should be free once they get here.
Clearly.
No, there'd be auctions where we could bid for them within the minimum prices set out by the Fair Work Ombudsman, of course.
Sure.
Then we could shackle them together in a sort of chain gang and put those refos to work, toting my barges and lifting my bales. And why not? We're a generous people, and as Labor's Julian Hill said, there's a desperate need for warm human bodies prepared to work hard in the regions right now and for the next couple of years until the borders reopen properly. In other words, if they're alive and can carry a basket on their head in return for the promise of maybe living here, they'll do. Until international travel's back on and we can get them sexy backpackers back in.
A warm human body sets the bar pretty low, though, doesn't it?
Oh, I'm not fussy, Shaun. They can be shivering and have a core body temperature of 0 Kelvin as far as I'm concerned. Probably less if they're sleeping in one of our fridges. Don't even have to be human. If some sort of cold metallic alien of the type featured in War of the Worlds can collect my boys and Briz by the end of October, I'm happy to dangle the carrot of residency in front of the bastard.
Well, thanks very much, Claudia. And we have a question from the audience on this particular subject. Would the character we sometimes have on wearing a jumper make himself known? Yes, you with your hand up.
Me?
Yes?
Well, I was thinking about this NT Farmers Association plan to offer students a discount on their HECS debt if they go to rural regions to pick fruit. But I think it should apply to all forms of debt. Mortgages, credit cards, in fact, bills of any kind.
Well, it's difficult to keep track of, isn't it?
Not so, Shaun, for I have devised a system of coloured tokens that I call not debt tokens, each one representing a given value of not debt that the farmers can give to the workers, allowing them to choose which debt they wish to cancel out.
Yeah, and what would you call this system?
Well, because each token represents a given value of fruit picked, I am calling it Apple Pay.
You don't think it'd be easier just to give the workers money?
Yeah, good luck getting the farmers to do that, Shaun.
Yeah, he's got a good point there, hasn't he, Claudio?
Yes, and if you think you know the answer, etc. And you could win a Zan rowing machine. Give yourself a complete cardiovascular and total body workout with this sturdy recreation of Triple J's most popular presenter, reimagined as if she were a piece of exercise equipment. That's nice.
The resources of the Midsummer Constabulary are tested when a terrorism cell is activated and a jihad is declared on the idyllic county. Midsummer Islamic State terror attacks, Sunday 8:36, followed by the almost unwatchable Montgomery and Thistle.
Appalling. Well, coming up before Utopia to let us know what's happening later in the week.
Coming up next, the sleepy village of Colchesterington gets a wake-up call when the town cretin is throttled in the belfry of the local church. Then it's more death as Sergeant Pomfrey investigates a spate of fatal electrocutions, followed by Auntie Nana's acid bath nightmares. We hope you enjoyed tonight's viewing.
And finally, revelations last week that Australian police accessed the communications of top Chinese diplomats as part of an investigation into political interference in the months before a crackdown on Australians in China suggests that in this whole China-Australia tit-for-tat, Australia was responsible for the initial tit. As we know, the AFP were investigating whether China's Sydney consulate conspired with a New South Wales MP's policy advisor in a plot to infiltrate the Labor Party and influence voters. Preposterous, the idea of the Labor Party influencing voters. I mean, come on! Goodbye.
Giant baby.